with a roll call.
Good evening. Carl Hopkins,
Here?
Bruce Miller,
Here.
Carl R. Curry, Dolores Johnson,
Here.
Karen Kahn, Kirk Martin,
Here.
Jim Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Public comment, do we have any public comment slips?
No comment slips, no.
Okay. Maybe
Unless
we
somebody-
do have a public comment slip coming up. Any member of the
No.
public may address the Airport Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled before us that same day. The total amount for public is 15 minutes and no individual more than 2 minutes. Still no public comments. Notices.
Going once?
That on Friday, October 16th at 5:30, the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Commission. Next is minutes. May I have a motion that for the Airport Commission to waive the reading and approve the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, September 16th?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent calendar. So the only item on the consent calendar is a property management report. Motion to receive the monthly property management report?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Liaison reports. I don't think I see either of our liaisons here tonight. All right, well, we'll just go right into the administrative reports. Now, I do have a question here. If you tell us how bad the storms are gonna be, or is that gonna make them go away? Should we really discuss how much rain we're gonna get?
There's no guarantee, as you know.
Okay, so we have.
However,
an
preparation's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Preparation, a report on the preparations for the massive storms we hope to have this winter.
Exactly, and tonight, Pete Conception, our maintenance supervisor, will give you the presentation.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Pete Conception.
You probably have to talk
be,
at the mic or over here.
Okay.
you want to sit with me, or do you want?
Sure, I'll sit with you.
Okay.
Otherwise, the television doesn't pick it up.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Commissioners, my name is Pete Conception. I'm the maintenance supervisor for the Santa Barbara Airport. I've been here 20 years with the airport, 21 years. And I'm here to talk about the airport weather preparations for the winter. Currently, my staff consists of 12. 10 of them are maintenance staff and 2 of them are landscape workers, or grounds maintenance. So what I'd like to share with you is our discussion. We'll start with the background. We'll start with our watersheds are that lead here to the airport, some of our past flood events, weather predictions that NOAA is forecasting for us for this upcoming winter, some of our storm preparations, and our flood response preparations in case we are inundated. This is our watershed here, and what's amazing is here, that's our location. What's amazing to know is that 45 square miles of front country leads down to us. That's amazing. So our watershed, and my laser pointer doesn't want to work. Yeah, it's typical. So watershed starts around here. That's just east of the San Marcos Pass, the top of our mountains, and west to about Winchester Canyon, all leads down to here and out the Goleta Slough. 45 square miles. That's amazing. That includes all the surface streets, all the drains, right down to us. It's incredible. Winter of '69. Obvious. It's that was. I remember that. I was a young child here, but I remember that winter, and it was quite something. I mean, it's just immense. And of course, that's our historical building there, and I did not see it here, but that's quite amazing. 15 inches, 15 and a half inches for that month. The floods of the 90s, January of 1995, I was here for that. 24.2 inches of rain. It was amazing. Basically, there's our bungalows by the tower. It was to the top steps. The maintenance yard, knee-deep in mud. We had our vehicles inside there, and we were stuck. We couldn't get them out. Our airfield, taxiways, Cass Street. It was amazing. February 1998. Now, January of 1995, that was what they said was a La Nina. 1998 was El Nino. That year basically made that a household name, El Nino. They started just figuring it all out. It was amazing. 21 inches that month. So some of the weather predictions that El Nino or the NOAA's coming up with, this picture here on the left is 1997-98 winter. Okay, there's your warm waters. This was October, as of October of 2015, this year. This is what they're looking at now. So that's why they're predicting. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get a whole lot of rain. They're just saying the chances are great to have quite a bit of precipitation. So part of our storm preparations for staff is we are going out into the airfield. We're cleaning all of our storm drains that are out there and all of our street drop inlets. We have over 200 of them to make sure that they're clean, they're open, and ready for volumes of water. It's quite an undertaking, but we do it every year in anticipation of something like that this year. We go to all of our ditches. This is Firestone Ditch along Firestone. This is the V Ditch down by Atlantic, and this is down by our maintenance yard. So we take and we clean out the bottoms just like this one is. We clean out the bottoms, remove all the dirt, and obviously we take care of all the brush so that we make sure the water flows like it's supposed to. We make sure staff goes up on the roofs. We clean out gutters. We inspect the roofs so that our tenants don't have leaky roofs. We seal our manholes. What happens is when we do flood, it inundates our sewer system and it starts just filling up so quickly that it backs up. So we are taking preventative measures now to seal those manholes off so that we don't get that inundation of water in our system. And we also provide pedestrian access to our tenant buildings like the bungalows we just saw. We build bridges across the little V ditch that accesses there. And we have a couple of other places on the property, but we provide them bridges to get to there. We coordinate with county flood control. We make sure that they are notified. We make sure that all of our debris basins and our silt basins are ready to take on water. Flood wall constructions, we have some projects going on. Goleta slough mouth grooming. That is a new process that airport planners are working on right now so that we don't have to do the breaching that we typically do. This is just another avenue to make sure that we can maintain a groomed area so that it will naturally breach itself. And obviously, we go through staff flood response planning and other things. Here's some of the flood walls that the county is working on. This is right here down by the golf course. This is right here at Carneros Creek down by the maintenance yard. And the county's already opened that up. And this is the breaching I was talking about that we need to have happen in case flood waters do come. It's necessary. Flood response preparations, prepare for potential flood recovery efforts and cleanup. That's basically to the properties, to our tenants, our airfield more importantly, and making sure our infrastructure is back intact. regaining water, electricity, making sure the roadways are clear and our sewer lines are clear and running so that we can get our tenants back, and obviously the terminal, make sure it's flowing well. Other preparations, we stock emergency supplies. We offer sandbags to all of our tenants. We have quite a bit of sandbags already built up, and we have MREs, meals ready to eat. We have enough, I'm pretty sure we have enough for about 1,500 people, or I think that's what the number is.
Few hundred people for a few days.
There you go. Thank you. I've tasted them, they're pretty good.
They are good.
Some of the equipment we have at the maintenance yard, we have pumps, we have generators in case we need them. All of our heavy equipment, our sweepers, and obviously we'll be coordinating with outside contractors to help us out. During the floods of '95, we had Granite Construction out here for days, helping us clear the airfield, removing all the debris that floated down from all the hills and the backyards, and just, it was unbelievable out there. We make sure that all our emergency signage, lights, barricades are ready to go. Emergency contact information for staff, tenants, in case we have to get notifications out to them, which we usually do if we know a big storm is coming. They are notified. And like I said, contractors to help us out and get this airport back up and running. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also lived through that.
Yes.
I remember the impact on Hangar 1 and where Above All Aviation is. And are they just going to put out the sandbags ahead of time before it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. The
It was-
sandbags are available now. So,
Matt.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a
So-
lot of pictures too to share with Matt if he would like to see how it impacted that part of the airport.
I too have a video.
Yeah. And we actually had a kayak. There were people out there kayaking.
Oh my
To
God.
get it to other people, yeah, it was really quite crazy. What about the fuel farms? I saw that you listed it on there.
The fuel farms, we're just going to make sure that all of the inlets, in case we have a spill, obviously the airlines have their own protocols. So we're here to help them out in any way we can.
How do you prevent it from getting a bunch of water in the, where you actually hold the,
I think
Fuel
that would be
farm.
an airline procedure. They could probably,
okay, okay, that was all I had to say, thank you.
Questions or comments? Thank you very much.
thank you.
At least we're very lucky that we've got you here with lots of experience.
Well,
You've been
yeah.
through it before, so we have a great deal of confidence you'll be able to take care of us whatever happens.
We're already thinking about it, so,
All right.
thank you.
Very good. Okay, next on here is 2016 first quarter financials.
Yes, sir. Mindy will bring that up here shortly. This is a very brief report. But to give you an idea of where we are through the first 3 months of the year, we have shown a very slight increase in our passenger traffic, which is very positive for all of us. Commercial industrial properties were still off from what we have available to the dollars that we were projecting. Rental car revenue is up, and part of that, I believe, is because there are fewer off-site locations to rent cars. In addition, I know that I believe it's Avis has Zip cars at the airport, and those are also, that revenue is also included in their sales. Parking revenue is up. Part of that is because we're using Lot 2 as valet parking for Surf Air, which operates out of Atlantic. In addition to that, when the rent-a-cars have an overflow of vehicles that they need to store on the airport, then they use that lot for storage, and then they pay a fee for that as well. But it can also be tied back to just a short increase in passenger traffic, because those two are definitely tied together. GA operations are also up a little bit 3% for this year, which is good. So our total revenue overall is almost even. It says 0.6% below, but that's almost even. Total revenue is below 2015 at the same time of the year. We have had an increase in the terminal revenue. As I mentioned, rental car contracts are up, parking revenue's up. Some of our other revenue is down under other revenue, not just other, but there's that line item that says other revenue, and that's down. And that's because we were delayed in getting reimbursed from the TSA for our patrol officers who have to man the checkpoint or be responsive to the checkpoint. The federal government, because of financial or budgeting issues, were delayed in getting us a new contract. And then so the revenue for last fiscal year came in this fiscal year. And when the audit was being done at the finance department for the whole city, the auditors suggested that since it was a revenue and expenditure in that year and the revenue came in, it needed to balance. So they transferred it out during this quarter from this year's to last year's, and that's why it's showing a decrease, a substantial decrease. We do have a contract with for TSA, and we will get more funds this year. So it just looks weird on the books.
Yeah.
So you'll see a negative $6,000. That's the reason that's there. So this chart just illustrates the variances that we were just discussing. And under salaries and benefits, we still are carrying vacancies. Patrol has 2 vacancy patrol officers right now. We anticipate a third vacancy in December when one of our long-term officers retires. We've had vacancies in just about every division, and we continue to have vacancies in administration. On the maintenance and parking management, encumbrances of $1.6 million. So we have encumbrances that are not shown. What we're showing is actual expenditures for the first quarter. However, when the maintenance staff or a contract is issued, we encumber for the whole year. But in this report, you're only seeing the expense for the first three months. But we do have the outstanding $1.6 million in encumbrances. Capital transfers are significant to last year. If you'll recall, we didn't actually have a capital budget to speak of last year. We just transferred funds for the T-Hangar and a few other places. But this year we are doing some capital improvements. And then revenues exceed expenditures by $400,000. This chart provides the numbers and the variances by the budget. So once again, just under supplies and services, it looks low, and that's because it is showing actual expenditures, not the encumbrances. But you will notice that the total budget, revised budget for 2016 is $17.6 million. And if you'll recall in revenues, it was 16 million something. So we are at this point budgeting reserves, policy reserves for our budget. And hopefully we won't have to spend all that, but that is how we balance the budget for this fiscal year. We also, I mentioned the TSA adjustment that we did. We also had an error in the rent-a-car billing. One of our rental car companies elected to pay us more than once. And we took it, but when we audited and did the reconciliation, we acknowledged that they had overpaid, so we returned that money. And we are transferring to the T-Hangar fund from our operating fund. I believe it was around $37,000 because we'd been carrying a deficit. We knew when we built those facilities that the airport would have to subsidize for a period of years, and we just had not cleaned that up. So we got that cleaned, and now it's zero negative. I mean, there's no negative balance there. But the net effect with all of that is that we actually earned $7,400. So it's nice when the auditors come in and you actually find money or you get more money, so that's great. Any questions?
To clarify the encumbrances, if we charge the full year's encumbrances against first quarter revenue, then we wind up with this 18.4% overrun.
That's correct.
So if we were to just charge 25% of the encumbrances, we'd still be fine.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One quick question on the salaries and benefits section. We have positions open. Is that budget prepared to not fill all of those openings?
Now, the budget was prepared and approved by City Council, full funding for all the positions that are listed. As a operational savings, if you will, during the year, if we don't fill those positions, then the funds that we save would drop to the bottom line to offset any negative balance.
Right.
But it wasn't an intentional to budget a position and not fill it.
And I didn't sense that it was, but it appeared as though we were only 15% below the budget, yet we had positions open. If we were to fill those, would we be over budget?
Actually, we'd still have salary savings because it's budgeted for a full year. And if you go in half a year with a
Okay.
position, then that's all that you're going to spend half the salary amount.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a little unclear on the materials, supplies, and service. The items for which you've posted the encumbrance, were those all budgeted items?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So,
And some of that too on supplies and services. Recall when utilities are always lagging a month behind. And so that also gets trued up at the end of the year. So the first quarter is really a snapshot. We don't have enough time in the first quarter to really show everything, but they're all fully budgeted.
yeah, thank you.
The vacancies, following up on Ms. Martin's, are they open? Why are they vacant? Are you unable to hire, or have you chosen not to hire, or is there some other reason?
Chair Hopkins.
Remember, I was nice.
No, it's my prior position, the assistant airport director. We recruited twice in the last year, received 157 applications, interviewed those that met the minimum qualifications, and were unable to select someone. So at this point, we are going with a recruiting company who specializes in airport recruitments, in airport positions. The name of the company is ADK. And so they will assist the city in doing a recruitment for that position. Patrol officers, as you know, we have a long history of having vacancies in patrol division. And right now, we were fully staffed, and then we were so good at selecting good qualified candidates. One got promoted or took a position with UCSB within a year. Another officer who had tons of experience was just uncomfortable operating on the airfield. I mean, it is different than streets and sidewalks. I mean, you get on the airfield and you've got blue lights and white lights, and it is different. So he elected to retire or to resign. So that's 2 vacancies. And then a retirement in December, that's 3. And we had a recruitment. We had
57.
another 150. It's amazing that number keeps coming up. 157. Now, keep in mind, they're not all, and then we have a written exam, and we have, I call it an agility, but it's a physical running and jumping and whatever. So we had 30 people show up. From that number, I think it was down to 8. Did you interview 8?
Yeah,
8 individuals. And Tracy can add more on the patrol since he sat in on those. We have another, we just recently have a half-time position that we're filling. We're advertising now in the SOC or in the operations division. Another one, administration, that we're also advertising. And recently, our city attorney, Ariel Colon, said, when unemployment is at 5.1% or 5.2, I mean, it really is more difficult to recruit and to hire. So I think we're experiencing that. And I don't think the airport's unique. I know I've heard echoes downtown in other departments of similar situations. So we are working on it.
That answered my question. Those 8 that you were down to, is that proceeding, or are those,
Tracy? Mr. Lincoln will respond.
or should we not comment at this point?
We're in process with that. We interviewed 6 of them Thursday. We'll interview 2 more next
Okay.
week.
All right.
So just to point out the obvious, I believe you mentioned that the previous assistant director has been irreplaceable then for the last year?
Well, it sounds like to
Is
me.
that what you were saying?
Yes, that is true.
It's-
Okay, I think we're unanimous on that last. So maybe we will move on to the next, which is the airport emergency response. We receive a staff presentation.
Exactly. I've asked Tracy and Kelly Canassa, our operations supervisor, to make this presentation tonight. As you know, the airport's required, I'm stealing some of her information, but on an annual basis, the airport, through FAA's requirements, we have to do an exercise. Every 3 years, it's a full-scale exercise with actors pretending to be injured and crashes and smoke and flames and whatever. But during the interim years, we do a tabletop exercise. And that generally occurs in the month of October. So I thought it was just appropriate for you to see what FAA requires of all of us, and then sort of how we respond and those folks that are part of that response. So I'm not sure which way you two are doing this.
I'll start.
Tracy's starting, okay.
Okay, you're about to hear some things a second time, but that's okay. You got me on the mic? All right, we're good now. As the director mentioned, we are required to have an emergency plan, and I thought we'd kind of back up and give a kind of a big picture view of how we're classified by the FAA. We receive a Class 1 airport certificate from the Federal Aviation, and we're certified under Part 139 of the Code of Federal Regulations. We can serve scheduled operations of large air carrier aircraft as well as unscheduled operations of large air carrier aircraft. The fleet mix of air carrier aircraft that serve this airport fall within the fleet mix defined by the FAA as an Index B requirement, which dictates the minimum level of aircraft rescue and firefighting response that you are required to have. We have above Index B, so we're quite well protected that way. As you did just hear, the emergency plan is a requirement of the FAA for every Part 139 airport. The other requirements are that we coordinate the emergency plan with mutual aid agencies. Makes great sense to everybody, I'm sure. We conduct an annual review and tabletop exercise of the airport emergency plan. We have one tomorrow morning. We'll be getting with everybody and going through and reviewing the plan, talking about some scenarios and just discussing, where they show up, what they'd be looking for when they get here, and kind of where they would be in their response at different time frames throughout the anticipated response. We provide training for the first responders, mostly in really coordinating, making sure they understand what's in the airport emergency plan. All the fire department folks get great training on the medical and the fire on their own, as well as the ambulance folks in triage, but we bring them in and coordinate so they know where to arrive on the airport and kind of what to expect with the command structure at the airport. And then, as the director mentioned, we do have a triannual full-scale live exercise. That one's way more fun than the tabletops, for sure, for everybody involved. And the next one is October of 2016. This is what is supposed to be covered in the, well, not supposed to, is covered in the emergency plan and is required. Of course, aircraft accidents and incidents are at the top of the list, as well as bomb incidents. Structural fires, because of our location, counties first in and typically lead on structural fires, and then the city would roll right in just as soon as they can, because the aircraft rescue and firefighting equipment they're not outfitted for structural fires. And then fires at fuel farms and storage areas are required to be covered. Natural disaster, they lump them all in. Earthquake, flood, they're all lumped into natural disaster. So we do have some separate checklists for the different disasters, but that's how it's put in the regs. And then hazardous materials and dangerous goods incidents, sabotage or hijack incidents, kind of go in with the bomb incidents there. And then power failure for the movement area lighting. It's still there. I'm happy to say most airports in the United States these days have significant backup generators, as we do, and it has helped. It's never failed us. I should have said that. That's a jinx. But anyway, we have quite the good backup generator. We're pleased. And then you are also, because of the proximity of the water, required to have water rescue situations, and the county does handle water rescue. Recently, the city fire department had people trained and joined that team, so that has been bolstered as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let our operations supervisor, Kelly Canals, take over from here.
All right, thank you. So I'm just going to go through basically what a typical incident response looks like and help you guys understand what the different divisions in the airport do, what their response is, and how we all work together. So initially, when a crash or an incident happens, we're usually notified via the crash phone. So that's the red phone there. And then what's unique about the crash phone is that it goes directly, the information goes directly to our Security Operations Center, to Santa Barbara Police, to ARF, all at the same time. So if any one of those 4 parties picks up the phone, it'll ring to the other 3 parties, and we'll all get notified at the same time. So this is just a little flow chart about the chain of command and, not the chain of command, but the information flow from the time that an accident is identified. So either a pilot will communicate that they have an emergency, or air traffic control, one of the two will happen. Air traffic control will observe an incident and then notify us. So when the crash phone rings, as it's noted there, again, it goes to the airport SOC, to ARF, to Station 8, Santa Barbara Police, and also airport admin. We're all in the loop, and we'll get notification to our desk phones. The SOC, from that point, when they get the information, they'll identify what type of alert it is. So an alert, we'll go into that in just a minute. There's 4 different types of alert. And then as needed, the Santa Barbara Police Department or the SOC will dispatch additional parties depending on the type of incident. So our Security Operations Center, or the SOC, will dispatch all parties on the airport, so airport patrol, other operations staff, any airport maintenance if needed, and then anything off airport or other mutual aid. And the different types of alert are listed here at the bottom. An alert 1 is basically a minor emergency, maybe a rough running engine or an oil leak. Alert 2 would be something more severe, like a twin engine aircraft having an engine loss of one of the engines, or maybe smoke or fire on board the aircraft. And then an alert 3 is an actual accident. And then the types of, you can see that we stage for an alert 1 or alert 2. If it's an alert 3 or an accident, we respond immediately to the crash scene. Thought we'd show you some of the vehicles, what it looks like when they're out there in the airfield. We've got an operations vehicle at the top. One of our ARF vehicles, they're Oshkosh Strikers. That's what we call Foam 8-1. We also have Foam 8-2. And what's unique about these vehicles is that they hold their own water. They bring their own water and fire suppressing equipment out to the accident site. The Oshkosh Striker there holds 1,500 gallons of water. Airport Patrol on the top also responds, and airport maintenance as needed. They both provide essential functions to helping us secure the scene and then maintaining once we're responding. And then off airport, we have mutual aid that comes from the surrounding area, from Station 11, Station 14. We've got 3 different types of the trucks that they would respond with as needed per emergency. So as I explained, we have a unified command when we respond on airport. So typically ARF on airport, Station 8 will be the incident commander. However, we work as a unified team. So they'll work with Santa Barbara Fire, Santa Barbara Police, Airport Operations, Airport Patrol. We have a unified team as we move through the incident. Initially, everyone who's responding sets up, they position as needed. Then through ARF and through Santa Barbara Fire, Police will work on the rescue, basically going to the bodies, going, assisting people, extracting personnel from the aircraft, maintaining the scene security, making sure that nobody gets in who's not supposed to be in. Once the accident scene is declared safe and all the life safety has been addressed, then we go into a recovery mode where the airport actually takes command of the scene, and that's where we start to clean up the area, repair anything that's broken, repair any pavement damage, lights and signs, and return the airport to an operational status so that we can reopen, if it's a runway that's closed, so we can reopen the runway. So we show some of the emergency response locations here. Use the mouse. Tracy, you have the approximate locations?
I'm a little colorblind, so help me out here. Okay, the blue one over in the corner, Station 11, it's about 2.1 miles from the airport. And up there is County Station, that's Los Caneros. That's 2.25 miles. I drove them today just to make sure. 2.25 miles.
And then we also have the location of our ARF station on the airport. And typically, we will respond right beside that. That's our staging area, is our kind of attendant ramp. It's the closest location for operations and patrol to be able to respond, monitor, and observe what happens. Our hope is always that the aircraft lands safely, and if it doesn't, it gives us a good vantage point to see where we need to respond and how we need to react to the accident.
Patrol is always out there with us as well.
So what we included here is one of our reports from an incident we had occur this summer. Thankfully, it was an incident, not an accident. The aircraft did land safely. But to give you an idea of what our Security Operations Center does, the SOC, they monitor the air traffic control radio, they monitor our airport patrol radio, operations, maintenance, they monitor all the communication on the airport, and they happen to overhear a helicopter pilot speaking to a SkyWest pilot saying that it appeared that not all of the SkyWest aircraft gear were down, landing gear. So the pilot notified tower, we overheard the transmissions, and we responded accordingly because we heard the initial communication. So we responded before the alert was before the crash phone rang, before it was decided as an alert. And we've got a bit of a timeline here just to show you how things happen. Initially, as soon as we got the call, we dispatched operations, which is the Tango number there, Tango 6. We also dispatched patrol at the same time. The patrol units are the Sierra units, Sierra 4 and Sierra 11. So we were actually responding before, like I said, before the crash phone rang. We got the information from air traffic control regarding how far out the aircraft is, what runway they're landing on, souls on board, fuel, all the basic information we need to provide to ARF. And as you can see, as the timeline goes down, more airport personnel respond. Mutual aid also are en route. You can see that at 14:18 or 2:18 in the afternoon, the aircraft landed safely without incident. One of the most important aspects from an operational standpoint is that we inspect the runway after any incident like this to make sure that everything is safe and secure, to make sure that there's nothing loose on the aircraft that came off. We call that FOD, foreign object damage that could land on a runway. We make sure that all the signs and lights are working, that nothing was struck. And then we open the runway back up to air traffic control's control. And in this instance, from the time the aircraft landed to when we reopened was about 5 minutes. So it takes us a little while to drive up and down the length of the pavement, make sure everything's secure before we turn it back over, make sure it's safe. And that's also an FAA requirement. And then as you can see, our patrol units go over and they interview the pilots, they speak with them, find out what happened, take any documentation that's needed from the pilot. So the summary is that everyone who responds to our aircraft is of just utmost importance, from patrol to ARF, operations, maintenance. Everybody plays a critical role in helping the response go smoothly. And we really rely on mutual aid because we are limited on the airport. So having the additional fire support and police, sheriffs to back us up, depending on the type of accident, really helps support the airport and make our response complete. And it's definitely a collaborative effort between all of the parties. Any questions?
Questions or comments?
I have a comment. I think that at our next budget presentation, this might be a good segment to include for the city council.
Okay.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. It was very informative, and I have seen them respond quite quickly. I know once that phone goes, everybody seems to move the speed of light, which is good. Next item is runway protection zone impact analysis for the proposed James Fowler Road extension. We're to receive a presentation.
Exactly, and we also have a speaker slip for this particular item. The airport, or the city of Santa Barbara and the city of Goleta have entered into a memorandum of understanding to have this analysis conducted. And I thought it would be of interest to Airport Commission to know that it was happening and to know the parameters of this particular contract that will be entered into as soon as this consultant is selected. So Andrew Vermont our airport planner, will do the presentation. This is the, just so you know, it's the same presentation that we provided to City Council. So just for your information. Thank you, Andrew.
Chair Hopkins, Airport Commissioners, thank you. This is an example of one of the eccentricities that we have, given that the Santa Barbara Airport is disconnected from the rest of the city and surrounded by other jurisdictions. We have to enter into a lot of agreements or memorandums of understanding in order to resolve issues. I'll summarize this very broadly. First, I'll describe a little bit what a runway protection zone is and what that term means to an airport. And then I'll talk about the proposed James Fowler Road extension, what a runway protection zone impact analysis is or what it purports to do, and then why we're entering into a memorandum of understanding. Firstly, a runway protection zone is defined by FAA Advisory Circular 150-5300-13A. And previously, it had defined a runway protection zone as an area that was to be free and clear of structures and concentrations of people. In 2012, when 150-5300-13 became 13A, the regulations were modified to remove references to parking lots as a permissible use in a runway protection zone. And while it had been silent on roadways prior to 2012, it then specifically spoke about moving runways or roadways outside of the runway protection zone and limiting uses in the RPZ to agricultural and passive open space, basically. This is the runway protection zone on the east end of our airfield, and you can see there in green the proposed extension of James Fowler Road and a traffic circle that would connect Fowler Road to Fairview and Placentia Street. The proposal would cut through a portion of the RPZ there on the southern end. That's part of a larger project that the city of Goleta is proposing that would extend both Fowler Roads and Eckwell Street to Kellogg Avenue. You may recall that at one time this included connections to 217 before the university decided that that should not happen. It also includes improvements to the intersections at the 217 on-ramps on Hollister Avenue. So in order to complete this project, and to ensure that this new roadway wouldn't introduce new risks to lives and property on the ground or to the flying public, the FAA has encouraged that the airport conduct a runway protection zone impact analysis, which consists of three parts. You look at the proposed project's potential to change accident probability. In this case, because there's no change to airfield configurations, that's probably not an issue. Location probability, where the specific location, does it become more or less vulnerable to an accident? Again, that doesn't seem likely. And then the consequences of an accident in that location, do those consequences increase or decrease as a result of the project? You put those together, come up with some sort of figure to quantify the change in risk, and that constitutes your risk assessment. Another important point is that a runway protection zone impact analysis needs to consider all alternatives, and so far we've reviewed, these have existed basically since 2012, so there aren't that many in the United States, but we found that the alternatives generally are to avoid the runway protection zone. That's to route your project so that it doesn't cross into the runway protection zone, to tunnel through the runway protection zone, which in our location is probably infeasible, or to relocate the runway protection zone. In this case, that would be to move or shorten runway 725, and then another is to not construct the project. So in order to conduct this analysis, the cities have agreed to enter into a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, where the city of Santa Barbara would hire an aviation planning firm to conduct the analysis. The city of Goleta would reimburse the city of Santa Barbara for that up to $100,000. Goleta would retain the right to terminate the MOU, and the results of the analysis are non-binding, so the city of Santa Barbara is free to make a decision following the conclusion. This was at the Goleta City Council yesterday, and it was approved on a 3-2 vote. It was at Santa Barbara City Council last week and was approved unanimously. So we have an agreement that's it just needs to go through the city clerk's offices for signatures. That constitutes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a speaker slip on this item.
Rosemary Gaglione. Thank you very much, Rosemary.
Thank you, members of the commission. I'm Rosemary Gaglione. I'm the Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Goleta. I am here to just tell you how important Fowler Road is to our overall Equa-Fowler project. We do have concerns about what might happen to overall funding if the scope of the project were to change. Fowler Road will increase connectivity for all modes of travel as well as provide alternate routes for emergency vehicles. The new road will not include parking in the RPZ. It will allow for a bit of maybe a cleanup of that area. There's a lot going on in that area now that has just sort of grown organically, and currently there aren't best management practices for stormwater runoff or anything like that. That could be corrected with this. The alignment of the road was not shifted to the north, as the staff report said, just to avoid impacts to private property, although we always try to avoid impacts to private property. The alignment you see there is the original alignment that actually goes back to 96, 97. And at some point, someone cut in a drainage ditch to get some water off of property, and a wetland sprouted up. And so we had to move the road alignment to try to avoid that. When that was removed by others, we put the road back where it should be, because there's a certain geometrics you have to have going into a roundabout. You have to have that curve to kind of slow things down as folks come in. So that's the reason for putting that back. That is actually the original alignment, and the roundabout itself only shifted, I think, a matter of feet. So it was really the road change to match that. New development in that area should be considered, we believe, on a case-by-case basis. If the city were not to support Fowler Road because of that concern as stated in the staff report, I don't think that's really the right way of looking at it. Everything should be looked at a parcel-to-parcel basis, project by project. If something is not compatible with the RPZ, then that should be dealt with. So we're looking forward to getting this RPZ analysis done. we don't feel that there's a larger safety risk, I mean, Fairview goes through the middle there, but the analysis is going to give us the facts of that matter. The FAA did issue a letter in April of 2014 on this, and one of the things it says is based on the provided analysis, although preferred, we understand that locating the roadway extension completely outside the RPZ would not be feasible. And then it goes on further down, it says, therefore, either alternative 1 or 2 would be feasible to implement, and directed that the city of Goleta, submit the Form 7460 and also have an RPZ analysis done. So I'm just here to encourage you to have an open mind about the project, and as more information comes in, and we're always here to answer questions or concerns. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have comments or questions? I have one. You noted that the Goleta City Council approved it on 3-2. Do you know what the reasoning behind the 2 no votes were, what they objected to?
Chair Hopkins, their concern was that this would be an allocation of City of Goleta funds toward an analysis that could result in no benefit to the City of Goleta. So there was a concern that was not the best use of funds, I think.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
So will this study provide estimates of the traffic, the overall traffic impact or additional road traffic, or is that outside of the scope of this type of study, and that's more in just the overall development study?
We would definitely need to include traffic counts, both current and future, in a consideration of a roadway project. That's I think the changes in traffic movement are one of the key reasons that the City of Goleta proposes the project.
And does this development in any way alleviate some of the traffic impacts that were identified in the master plan, in the EIR, the master plan, which mostly seem to be located on the Fairview intersection up at Hollister?
It alleviates but not eliminates. Yeah, we would still have a significant cumulative impact with the incorporation of this project.
Thank you.
And did I understand that both of these roads are anticipated to terminate at Kellogg and not be connected to 217 even as an on-off ramp?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. That,
How much would this add to the existing roadways in the RPZ?
As a percentage, I don't know that I could answer that. That's a great question. We will look at that in the impact analysis, certainly.
anything else?
So if the runway 25 had not been relocated, it looks like the wedge would have been smaller where it was, right?
The runway relocation project took a number of Old Town Goleta properties out of the runway protection zone that had been, the runway protection zone extended into South Kellogg before it was relocated 800 feet. So the number of parcels that remain outside of airport control was reduced significantly by doing that. But I think you're right, portion of the roundabout would not have been in the RPZ under the old alignment.
Any other comments or questions? Next, I guess we have the director's report.
Thank you, Andrew. Just a few items for you tonight. You have a copy of our wonderful passenger count. Once again, we are down this month versus our slight increase last month. I also would like you to know that the seasonal second flight to Seattle, which was started as a seasonal, that flight will expire at the end of this month. And so we'll go back to 2 flights with Alaska Airlines, 1 to Seattle and one to Portland. So that will have an impact on our passenger traffic as well. Under the marketing program, promotions, I mentioned last month that we had worked with a company to assist registering our travelers for the TSA pre-check, and we were anticipating 960 travelers. I need to tell you that in the first 3 days, we've had 425 folks sign up for that. We're having as many walk-ins as we had scheduled practically. So I'm not sure it's going for 2 weeks, this week and next week. So it's a huge number of folks coming through. And we're taking advantage as they stand in line to conduct a survey. So it's a dual purpose there. We're going to gather some great information. The master plan, keep in mind that the comment period is October 30th. We had extended it for a few days. So the last day to submit comments is October 30th. And then one last thing, we have our 2 airport improvement program projects underway. The airfield electrical and safety and fence project has started. And you'll probably notice on the signature ramp some additional ramp replacement going on. So we hope to get a lot of that done before any possibility of rain comes, but just to let you know. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have. And if not, that concludes my report.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Our
you.
meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.